complete care that you have in your visual style. And so maybe you could just talk about how that's evolved over the years in terms of your use of the camera as an emotional tool.
Yeah, I think the camera should be part of your palette, and I think that you know, I'm very conscious of this in the use of handheld techniques, keeping that to the most dramatic moments, not using it unnecessarily at all, but when you know, when the emotional temperature arises, to have, you know, fine handheld work, to get in absolutely amongst it. Then go to the other extreme, where you know, you're really framing things for their beauty and their sort of longueur, and so the film has got sort of many different textures. I'm sort of scared of styles that go in and out, and just to try to use all the visual options, but without going into too much technical stuff of divided screens and folding, because I think that sort of stylistic stuff gets so dated so quickly.
And I also notice you always have absolutely perfect opening sequences. I mean, and why is that important to you?
I think it's very, very important to give people a taste of what they're going to see. I think it's just, I think if you lose them in the first minute and a half, you're dead. I don't think you can wind up slowly. I think you've just got to start strong.
I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of directors, but I've always been intrigued in your interviewing technique, and it's something that I think the filmmakers in the audience will find interesting. And maybe if you could just talk a little bit about that, how you approach an interview and the different ways that you work with it.
You're going to find this absolutely bizarre. You know, having spent a lot of time with people, and so we're not just going to see them for the first time. And then I asked that extraordinary question, would you mind if I did the interview twice? I explained that they don't have to think about, you know, answering in the same way or anything like that. And there are no rules. It's extraordinary. Sometimes the first run, they're flustered, and the second run, they know the terrain, and they're giving wonderful, clear answers. And sometimes they just do the first one beautifully, and the second one is boredom. They've done it once, but there's no rules for this. It does give me cutting latitude. It excludes things that... I'm so frightened of sort of doing interviews on tracks and things like this, where I feel the really key personal moment might be lost when I'm around the back or something like that. But it is a very oddball thing of doing the interview twice, and I've never yet, whoever it is, come across somebody who says, you know, I'm not going to do nonsense like that. I'm going to do it, you know, one interview is enough for you.
I think it's rather like when you get off the telephone and you think, oh, why didn't I say that? Yeah. You get a second chance to say something, and often it's in a more succinct, more interesting way. The other way that you work in terms of your editing process, I always have thought was rather unique, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that after you've done your shooting and you've come home from on location.
Yeah, it's in the early days, I think out of fear, one worked from a treatment that was very exact and so on. I think that's very inhibiting, and I think it's dangerous, because if you've got that written document that you're working to, and I'm afraid television is moving in this direction all the time. You've got to have these detailed treatments that we can look at and approve of. But if you've got that, there's a danger that you're going to sort of slightly alter things to fit that pattern that's in your head. And I just don't believe, I think that's completely and utterly wrong. So what I tend to do is do a lot of research, meet a lot of people, but honestly go into the film with no idea where the beginning, middle and end of the program is. Absolutely none at all. Get into each situation and give it its best and treat it for itself. Then something very strange happens. One comes back, one has a week of thinking, of looking at VHSs of the interviews or DVDs now, and then suddenly the whole thing seems to fall into place. And I do go to the cutting room with a structure, which in all honesty didn't exist a week earlier. And we virtually fine cut from the beginning. We never do any rough cuts and swing sequences around. We just kind of motor through like that. And of course, things up there change, but we finish a film which is about 10% over length, and then we retune that. And it sort of goes forward like this. And I don't know any other directors who work that way.
No, I mean, most people assemble their
Yeah.
rushes and then cut down.
Yeah.
So it's, with a, say, a 72 or 74-minute documentary, how long would your first pass?
It's about 85, 90, something like that.
And
And then you make the difficult choices.